Hi folks, it's Mike Murphy, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create symbolic links, or Symlinks for short, so you can access any folder located anywhere on your Mac in your Obsidian Vault without actually having to move the physical location of the folder. So let's say that you keep your Obsidian and Obsidian Vault folders in iCloud Drive like I do. But all of my AI development builds, these are tools and apps that I'm vibe coding with Claude Code, Codex, Gemini, etc. Code bases that are getting pushed to GitHub, they all live in the home directory on my Mac. I have a folder called Code, and inside of the Code folder I have projects. I want to be able to edit the Markdown files of my coding projects in Obsidian, but I do not want to move the location of the projects folder from the home directory into the iCloud Drive. I just want to open Obsidian and see this folder just like I would any other folder or file in my Obsidian Vault, but this folder is going to live in the home directory and my Obsidian Vault is going to live in the iCloud Drive. And just a quick heads up for Windows users. Even though today's tutorial is for Mac OS and Obsidian users, the good news is you can create Symlinks on Windows pretty much the exact same way. You're going to be using just a slight variation of the command, but it's the exact same concept. So what is a symbolic link, or Symlink for the cool kids like us? A symbolic or Symlink is just a pointer from one folder on your computer to another. The Symlink folder looks and behaves just like any other folder on your computer when you open it up in an application. When you create Symlinks, the actual files stay in their original location. And again, you can create Symlinks and open them in any application on your Mac, like Obsidian, VS Code, and you can see Symlinks in the Finder. And you create Symlinks using the Mac OS terminal or PowerShell if you're on Windows. And for those Mac users who are thinking, Symlinks sound an awful lot like aliases. What is the difference between an alias and a Symlink? Aliases are Mac OS specific. Aliases only work in the Mac OS Finder in native Mac OS applications. Aliases do not show up in the Mac OS terminal or command line tools or in third-party applications such as Obsidian. Symbolic or Symlinks, which we are going to create today, work just like aliases in that you can keep folders or files in their original locations, but you can create a shortcut or a reference to them in another location. But the difference between symbolic links and aliases, they work in the Finder, just like alias, but they also work in the terminal, CLI tools, and in third-party applications like Obsidian. So when you hear alias, think Mac OS specific. Aliases are easier to create. You can either just right-click on any folder or file, or you can use a keyboard shortcut to create aliases, where Symlinks, you can only create Symlinks in the Mac OS terminal or PowerShell if you're on Windows. An Obsidian Vault is just a folder on your computer. You fill up that Obsidian Vault folder with other folders and files. Even though you can open any folder located anywhere on your computer or hard drives as an Obsidian Vault, you can only open one folder at a time. So if my main Obsidian Vault folder is located in iCloud Drive, but what happens when I want to work on folders and files that are located in my Documents folder or in my Code folder, which is in my home directory? Well, I have a couple options. I can drag the original folder into my Obsidian Vault, and now I'll be able to work on those in my Obsidian Vault. But what if I don't want to move them from their original location? Well, I could make a duplicate of the folder, so I could just hold Option key on a Mac and just drag the folder into my Obsidian Vault, and now it's in my Obsidian Vault. The problem now is that these two folders are not linked. So if I make any changes or edits to the original folder, which is in my Documents folder, well, the folder in my Obsidian Vault has no idea. You can play the copy and paste game trying to keep everything in sync, but before you know it, you're going to lose track and not know what the source of truth is. to solve the problem of copying or duplicating files and folders so you can work on them in your Obsidian Vault. But then you run into the issue where you have multiple versions and you lose track of what is the source of truth. The solution is Symlinks, and here is how to create them using the Mac OS terminal. The way it works, you open Terminal and you change directories, or you CD into your Obsidian Vault folder, or you CD into any folder where you want to create a Symlink. So once Terminal is looking at that Obsidian Vault folder, or wherever it is that you want to create a Symlink, then you enter the command to actually create the Symlink. Open the Terminal application on your Mac, and then you're going to change directories or CD into the directory or folder where you want the Symlink to be created. In my case, I want it to be created in my Obsidian Vault folder called Mike Demo Vault. An easy way to change directories, you're going to type in CD space, and then I can simply drag this folder, my Obsidian Vault folder, right onto the terminal window. So here I go. I'm just going to drag it, let go. In case you didn't know, the iCloud drive paths are long and ugly. I'm going to use the arrow keys to unselect this. So I'll just tap the down arrow. So my cursor is now at the end. I'm just going to tap the return key. And now I am in my Mike Demo Vault in the terminal. A terminal side tip, you can always check and confirm what directory or what folder you are in the terminal by typing pwd, which stands for Print Working Directory. When I tap return, that is going to show me my current path, which again is that long, ugly iCloud drive. Another terminal side tip, to view the contents of a folder or directory, you can type ls, which stands for list. When I tap return, it returned no values because currently the Mike Demo Vault is empty. We are going to change that by creating a Symlink to the code folder, which lives in my home directory. So to create the Symlink, we're going to type in the command ln for link space -s for symbolic, space. Now you enter the path to the directory or folder that you want to be able to view in your Obsidian Vault, but you don't want to move from its original location. And just like we did when we changed directories using CD, well, you can just drag and drop a folder or file right onto the terminal window, and that is going to show you the path. I'll show you one more method just so you can have it in your toolkit. So I'm going to tap the right arrow so my cursor's at the end. I'm going to tap the delete key. So after the S, you have one space, remember. Now you can select the folder or file that you want to get the path for. Hold the Option key on a Mac and right-click, and there you will see Copy that folder as Pathname. If I let go of the Option key, you're going to see I no longer see that option. I only see Copy. But when you tap the Option key, you will see it says Copy as a Pathname. So I'm just going to click, and now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to paste Command V. That pastes in the same path to this folder or this directory. I'll tap the right arrow just to my cursor at the end. Now I could tap the return key. This will create a Symlink. If you want to add a custom name to your Symlink, well, after the end of the path, you're going to put a space and you can type whatever you want. I could do my code projects. That is going to create a Symlink with this name, my code projects. If you don't want a custom name, it is going to be the name of whatever folder you're creating the Symlink for, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to delete this custom name. I'm going to open up this Mike Demo Vault just so you can see it, because once I tap the return key, the Symlink is going to be created in this folder, which is my Obsidian Vault. You can see the Obsidian application is pointed to this folder. So when we create the Symlink, we should be able to see the code folder in Obsidian. So here we go. Drum roll, please. I'm tapping the return key, and bam. A symlink was created. We know it's a symlink because it has that curved arrow on the folder icon. And sure enough, in Obsidian now, we can see the code folder. Inside my Obsidian Vault folder called Markdown Vault, which is in the iCloud drive, there is now a folder called Code. This is a symlink. See that little arrow icon in the bottom left corner of the folder? That arrow is telling me that this folder is pointing back to another folder. This symlink folder is pointing back to the original code folder located in my home directory. But this folder is acting the exact same way as if I took this folder and dragged it into my Obsidian Vault. Obsidian is treating the symlink just like it would if it was any other folder. Any changes or modifications that I make to the original code folder in my home directory are going to automatically change the symlink folder because these folders are basically mirroring each other. Whatever I do in the Obsidian Vault code folder is going to change whatever is in the original, and of course the Obsidian app is just looking at whatever is in my Obsidian Vault folder. So if this code folder changes, well, I'm going to see the changes in the Obsidian app. So here I just have a Markdown file. I'm going to drag it into the original code folder. Now if I look in my Obsidian Vault, if I open up the code folder, there is note 1. If I move it out, it moves it out of the Obsidian Vault. If I move it into this one, now it's in my Obsidian Vault. It's also in the original, and we can also see it in the Obsidian app. So we have this entire three-way sync. It doesn't matter where I make changes. The original is always going to be updated, so I always know the source of truth, which is in my home directory in the code folder. So let's say that I brought in this code folder like we did today. And then I worked on it for a few weeks. I made a ton of changes in Obsidian. All of those changes sync to the original perfectly. And now let's say I no longer want this code symlink. I want to get rid of this from my Markdown Vault. I'm done with it. So if I delete this, or if I just drag it out of this folder, but I'm no longer going to be able to see it in the Obsidian app because I dragged it out of my folder. But the original, all of the changes that I made are still going to stay there. And I can move the symlink right back into the demo vault. And now I can see it again in Obsidian, and everything's going to sync no problem. To bring it full circle, let's take another look at aliases versus symlinks so you can actually see the difference now that you know how to create symlinks and how they work. So what happens when you create an alias or a shortcut to a folder and bring it into an Obsidian Vault? So to create an alias of this code folder, I can right-click and choose Make Alias, or the pro easy way, use the keyboard shortcut, press the Command and Option key together, just select whatever it is that you want to make an alias of, and just drag it to the location where you want the alias. So I'm going to drag it into my Obsidian Vault folder, and just as an FYI, the only reason that the word alias was added when we created the alias of code was because there was a folder of the same exact name, which you can have. So if I made this alias onto the desktop, Option Command drag, it's going to be the same name as the original folder. And you delete aliases or symlinks the same way. Just drag it into the trash can or use Command Delete on a Mac. At the beginning of this video, if you were wondering, why couldn't I just create an alias instead of a symlink and use the alias in Obsidian? Well, if you look at my Obsidian Vault folder, Markdown Vault, we created the symlink called code. We created an alias that is called code alias right now. And notice in the Obsidian app, Obsidian recognizes the symlink. Obsidian does not recognize an alias. Aliases, remember, Mac OS only. Aliases are visible, so if I double click on this, I can see everything inside of the alias because I'm in a Finder window. But a third-party application like Obsidian does not even know that the alias exists or does not recognize it. So if I try to drag the alias into Obsidian, nothing happens. The code folder acts like any other native folder on your computer. Obsidian treats it just like the folder in the home directory, but the alias, Obsidian doesn't even recognize it. And if I open up this same Demo Vault folder in VS Code, for example, VS Code can see the symlinks and everything in there. I can edit all of these files, but the alias, it can see that the alias exists, but it doesn't recognize anything inside it. We are almost done, but I just want to show you how the terminal handles aliases versus symlinks. Remember when I said that the Mac OS aliases are not recognized in the terminal or command lines, but symlinks are. So the way that we can confirm that is by trying to list everything that is inside of this alias folder. Now I can confirm there's a bunch of stuff in there. If I type ls for list, so ls space, now I'm just going to drag this folder right on the terminal window so I don't have to memorize that long, ugly iCloud path. I'll tap return. It just returned the path. It did not recognize anything inside of the alias. Let's do the exact same thing for the symlink. Remember, symlinks work in the terminal and CLI tools, which is why it is so great for AI and agentic workflows. So I'll do the same thing, ls space, I'm going to drag in the code folder, I'll tap return, and now it listed everything that is inside of the symlink because the symlink acts just like any other folder. And if you have two folders like we do here, where they both have the curved arrow, meaning those folders are pointing to somewhere else, and the kind both says alias, well, if you want to confirm which one's an alias and which one's a symlink, in the terminal, we're going to do the same ls command, but we're going to add a little flag, which is going to go a little bit deeper and give us the full picture. So I'll clear out the terminal again, just so it's easy to see. Clear. I'll type ls again. That stands for list. ls by itself is just going to list the file names of everything inside of a directory or folder. I'll put a space, and now I'm going to add the flag by typing out a dash. I'll type L switches to a detailed view. One item per line, so you can see exactly what kind of thing each file is. And then I'm going to add A. When you add A in the command, that is going to show all hidden folders and files. You always know when the folder or file is hidden on a Mac when there is a dot or a period in front of it. So the A just confirms when you run ls, it is going to list those hidden folders or files as well. So this ls space -la is going to give us the full picture. Every file, all of the details. I'll put a space after the A, and now we just need to drag in the path. So I can just drag the alias. I'll tap return. Let's do the same for the symlink, ls space -la space. Now I'm going to drag in the path of the symlink folder, tap return. There is one really easy way to identify the difference between a symlink and an alias when you run the ls space -la command in the terminal. If it returns an arrow, it is a symlink. That's all you need to know. Arrow equals symlinks. You will not see an arrow in the alias. And another way that you can identify the symlink, the permission at the beginning of a symlink always starts with a lowercase l. Notice in the alias, it has this -rw. A symlink is going to always return the permission with an L at the beginning, and it is always going to include an arrow. And this arrow is a pointer. This is showing you that the symlink was created in this directory, and it is pointing to this is the original folder's path. So if you ever have a folder on your computer and you can see the little curved arrow icon, so you know it's an alias of some kind, and you're like, I'm pretty sure this is a symlink, but I just want to double check. Well, you open up the terminal, you type ls for list space -la space, you drag on that alias with the little curve, and if it returns a value that starts with the letter L and you see the little arrow, well, you can confirm that that is indeed a symlink. If you want to remove or delete a symlink, simply delete it from the directory by dragging it into the trash can using Command Delete, or if you want to be a power user in the terminal, you can remove it by typing RM space, and you can just drag the symlink right onto the terminal, tap return, and that is going to delete it. Once I deleted the symlink, we can no longer see it in Obsidian, but the original folders and files in the Documents folders are exactly the same. If you want to create a symlink with a custom name, or a name that is different from the original, well, make sure that you're in the vault or the folder where you want to create the symlink. I'll type LN for link, space, -S for symbolic, space. I'm going to drag in the original, so this is the path to the original. I'll go to the end by tapping the right arrow, so make sure there's a space after the path. And now you just enter any custom name. What do you want the folder of the symlink to be called? So I could just say something like Awesome MD, tap return. That created a symlink in my demo vault. I can see it in Obsidian. It works the exact same way, it just has a custom name. And that is how you create symbolic links, or symlinks for short, on a Mac. Remember, you can do the same thing on Windows with just a couple different commands. But my name is Mike Murphy, your AI handyman. Cheers.